everybody, and welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast. I'm your host, Charli Matthews, and I'm really excited to bring you special guests today. We have been talking a lot about AI, and I'm hoping that we'll learn a little bit from her today. But go ahead and introduce yourself to the group.
Hi, this is Humera Malik. I am CEO of Canvas AI, one of the pioneers in industrial AI. And by the way, just so you know, that it's not that, we became part of AI bandwagon just because of the recent changes, what have been happening, but we've actually been, I say pioneers of AI is because we've been leading the charge to transform an industry that really has been, I would say, data-rich information poor because of the lack of application of some of the technologies like AI. So we've been leading the charge and transforming industrial sector for the past few years. And I can say now we've definitely, I think we've made a difference in terms of how people look at using their data and how AI is now being used on the plant floor, actually.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to hear more about that. And I don't want to go too fast. I want to know a little bit more about you and how did you get into this industry? What inspired you to go this direction?
This wasn't a very planned event that, I landed into the industrial side. It's actually, I've come from the telecom sector into the IoT side and then into the industrial IoT side. And the way it has happened is because I was solving problems in the IoT side, and I was actually leading a consultancy firm where we were doing a lot of digital transformations and working with the data. And as I got a chance to work with some of the industrial clients, what I realized that they would make a lot of investment into connecting their assets and collecting data, and they loved hoarding that data. And being a problem solver, I went into one of my customers and I said, well, you're collecting all this data. How about we make use of this data? And this is really where the journey started for me.
Okay, so help us understand AI and how this can be applied to industry. Since you've been through it, you kind of grown through it, right? I remember we talked a lot about like digitalization, and then you've done it. You kind of went and looked at those assets, digitize some of this, but how does AI, how do we incorporate that into industry? What do we need to know?
So I think one thing we all got to know is this is not something that the industry has not done, right? This industry has really done a lot in terms of using some of the aspects of AI. So they've applied the first principles models, which is, they have looked at their data and they have looked at how to basically make use of it from a first principles basis. But when you work with dynamic systems that are going up and down, up and down, up and down, this is where humans need to be augmented by certain kinds of technologies. And this is where AI plays a role. Where AI comes in is anytime you're working with any kind of dynamic control systems, you're working with where things are not necessarily the same every day, but they're changing, right? Because what happens is your temperature changes, the pressure changes, the moisture changes. And then, the quality of the product that you're putting in changes. Sometimes the workforce changes, right? It's a different shift, then a different shift, then a different. All those changes then require consistency. And this is really where the way AI works comes in best is any kind of dynamic environment where you have less control over it. AI can come and provide you that consistent, continuous control systems. So it has actually helped this industry to move from first principles into more of a dynamic control systems. You've heard about predictive maintenance. We all have heard about it. This has been applied in this industry forever, right? Predictive maintenance, which is first, it used to be scheduled maintenance because we knew after 6 weeks, I need to do that. But now it's turned into real predictive maintenance. It's precision maintenance, right? And what's that doing is do it when it's needed. You don't necessarily need to bring your entire system down and do maintenance because it's not needed necessarily. So for example, we were working in a water filtration plant, and they would actually clean out the filters or change the filters just because the guy who probably initially set it up 30 years ago always did it every X number of weeks. And then when they started to, and now this is like an old system that's been existing for years. When they started to apply AI, they realized we don't need to do it every X number of weeks. We can actually let it go, and the system would tell us when we need to clean the filter. What they were able to do is increase the throughput through it, increase and reduce the use of chemicals through it. And those are simple things. Existing system, AI gets applied, it makes it more efficient, less waste, less energy consumption, less chemical consumption. And so that's really where you would see the use of AI. And then all over the place, we have applied AI in refineries to actually help them better refine the crude oil. And then that has reduced the amount of engineering time, because these are resources which are very, they're not easy to find. And their time is very valuable as well. So the first thing is, even though it saves millions of dollars through the process, but the most critical part of it are actually the people that are assigned to it, because they don't have enough of them. And then you look at other things where robotics has played a huge role in assembly lines when it comes to applying that in the automotive sector. But now robotics and AI is playing such a huge role in other places. So you look at supply chain optimization, which we all dealt with, especially during COVID. But all of that really is now being handled, from inventory management to procurement, is being handled with the use of AI. And then you look at other sectors like healthcare, where this is really the kind of precision monitoring I'm talking about is being applied in surgical processes. We actually have worked in the healthcare sector on the pharmaceutical side, where on the R&D side, in the research side, and then in the design side as well, where AI is being applied because humans had tools that limited them to the number of simulations that they could do, or number of design concepts that they could produce. But now, or the number of variations that they could test out. But now that's not the case anymore. Now they can do hundreds of design concepts. And actually, it's applied in the aerospace industry in the same way. Hundreds of design concepts with different configurations that are now being used to test it out before you actually take it through a full manufacturing or a development process.
It's so much. There's so much. I feel like the speed of innovation is happening, right? So I think about this, and you kind of mentioned it kind of through your examples as well, but what does the future of work look like? What does that look like? Is it really going to help us with some of these challenges that we do have for the workforce? This is where my mind is going around this AI.
This is such an interesting topic. We could probably spend hours talking about it, but I'll say yes, there's a huge impact AI and Gen AI is now having. So the first set of things in the near term that we're already seeing is really on the job automation and job augmentation side. So a lot of the manual work that humans would do. For example, we were working with a customer where a lot of manual quality inspections are done. When they're doing welding, a lot of manual work was being done. And then if you put some other technologies, they're very expensive. Like you can put camera technologies and others, but when you're talking about hundreds of those facilities, it becomes very expensive. This is where AI came in at a point where they have humans, but they're being augmented with the use of AI to do the quality inspections. And now they can do more and also comply with certain regulatory requirements in terms of testing it through AI as well. So that actually helps you create more productivity. So this is not just job augmentation, job transformation as well, and it increases productivity. So this is where it's initially doing the automation and the augmentation. And the impact on the downstream side is really the productivity side. And this is really where the gains are being looked at is, by 2025, they say there would be about more than 2 million jobs that AI is creating. The impact of those jobs by 2030 is accounted to be somewhere in like $13 trillion of economic impact that it's going to create. But this is not all that rosy picture, let me just say, because I think what we also have to realize, and this is what I think is what we need to really, as an industry, all of us, every industry, be it, you're looking at a Fortune 500, or it's, 2-person shop or a 10-person shop. It's really looking at how AI is now doing skill disruption. So it's no more about job-centric, it's about skill-centric. So any organization that is still working on a job-centric approach and you're a large entity, I think survival would not be very easy. So what the competitive advantage is for people that are now looking at AI and embracing it for skill development, because it's creating a whole, and that's really about upskilling and developing, your existing workforce, doing upskilling and training. Because I'll tell you about our industry. There were people that have worked in it for 40 years and they always knew what to do. But then this new generation that's coming in doesn't know that. And it's very hard for that one person, because about 30 to 40% in the process industry, that workforce is an aging workforce. And when you look at that gap that's being created, and you look at the incoming workforce, this is a very digital oriented workforce. This is all about now the job transformation I'm talking about. So I think AI is bringing about these profound changes. The impact of it is great when you look at the dollar value of it as it's creating new jobs and the impact, but the transition is going to be quite painful as we would go through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that it is important that we continue to focus on those skills and, like you said, upskilling and just really, we're going to have to help each other along the way. It's nice to know that you are working on this, and I know that you're able to work directly with manufacturers and industry and show them how this works. Is there anything else that you want to kind of leave our listeners with before we go?
I think the one thing I would say is, because your listeners are probably coming in from, a set of different industries that we work in. One is really, AI is not a threat. It's actually a friend of augmenting any job that you're doing. So as we used to work in the industry, we used to work on specialized folks like process engineers that could work with AI. But over the course of the time that we spent with them, we also realized that a whole set of other people that also work with data. And this is really where I think Gen AI now has really transformed every industry, including ours, and where we have been able to actually bring Gen AI into the hands of every industrial worker. So I called it the tool for the industrial enterprise, where planning folks, research and development folks, any kind of business analytics folks, they now can touch and feel and make use of AI. This is really where I encourage everybody to go out and seek that kind of an AI, as we have done so with the launch of, Gen AI tools that are coming out. I encourage everybody to go out and look at those and test those out for themselves. Because I think the biggest challenge that every industry is facing right now is the fear of adopting AI. And I think that's what I would ask to your listeners as well to look at is look at embracing it, look at how it can impact you, and look at upskilling yourself, really. You don't have to rely on your organization. You can also do it on your own too.
Yeah, I love that advice. And if people do want to get in touch with you and learn more, what's the best way for them to contact your company?
They can actually go to canvas.io. They can look at us up on LinkedIn. They can send an email to info@canvas.io. They can look me up on LinkedIn as well. So all these different ways.
Okay, wonderful. I want to do a little rapid fire with you because I'm curious. What is your favorite book?
Oh, my favorite all-time book probably, and I'm an avid reader, but I'm going to remember it like probably ages ago. It was that Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy. It's kind of a comic science fiction book, which I really, really like. I think it was Douglas Adams. That's probably my all-time favorite book. I would say my recent favorite is probably something that I just read again. It was the CEO of Netflix. I think it's his book, Reed's book, No Rules Rules. That's kind of my favorite business book, I would say, at this point.
Awesome. What about music? Do you have a favorite jam or album or type of music?
A, a mix, but probably rock.
Okay. And what is the best advice that you've ever received?
Oh, that would probably be when somebody told me to focus on progress, not on perfection. That's something that I've followed. Like, I think since I was told and it was pointed out to me as an example of how I would do things, I think I've kind of made that as a guiding principle now in everything that I do.
Awesome. Okay, last question. If you were talking to a leader coming into this space, what advice would you give them?
Um, I would say is embrace yourself for um, a challenging environment, because I think what we're facing, as I said, the pain of the change and the transformation that we're going through, I would say is embrace yourself and make sure you hold tight to what you believe in, the mission that you're trying to achieve, because otherwise it's very easy to be derailed.
Yeah, that's great advice. Just really we've got to be self-confident in this. And I think, we touched on this. Go ahead and introduce ourselves to it. Get to know what AI is about. How can we use it in our daily lives? And then how can we apply it to work? So I enjoyed talking with you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it as well.
So
Thank you.
everybody else, make sure you share this episode, try out some AI, and until next time, be empowering.